that I know I have been waiting for, because we all know that we want to empower our children and our students and our young athletes to do things for themselves, versus having us push them along. So welcome everybody to Beyond the Steps. We meet here every Friday at 2 p.m. to tackle the big issues facing the dance community. I am Melissa McDaniel, the owner of Turning Point Dance Creations, joined by Bree Zabrowski, the CEO and co-founder of Apolla Performance. And today we are answering the question, how can we empower students, particularly our young dancers, to make healthy food choices? This is the day and age of helicopter parenting and over-involvement by the adults in children's lives. And unfortunately, those practices don't empower kids as we push them out of the nest into the world. So we definitely want to make sure that we are preparing our young dancers, if they choose to choose a professional career or just in general, to make choices that are good and serve their whole well-being. So this conversation is really about giving them more autonomy to make their own choices and the tools to make sure that those choices serve them well. So our guest today is Dr. Nasira Burkholder-Cooley, and Bree's going to tell you a little bit more about her.
Yeah, and this is like Melissa said, it's an exciting topic. It's a challenge. It's much harder than it sounds. And I know that this is going to help people not only with their student athletes, but also with parents like me who have young children at home, 4 and 8 years old, who this is, it's a struggle. We want to put healthy things in their body to fuel their brain and their body correctly, and stimulate them the right way, make sure they're growing and strong. And so it's definitely one of the more challenging tasks I have in my everyday life. So I'm really excited to hear this information. Dr. Nasira Burkholder-Cooley is a registered dietitian, fitness expert, and nutrition educator. She was drawn to public health and nutrition as a result of her diverse background in science, fine arts, and fitness. She's currently an adjunct faculty member at Chapman University, a private practice registered dietitian and postdoctoral researcher. She also serves as a nutrition educator for Chapman University, Department of Dance, and the ABT Gillespie School at Segerstrom Center for the Arts. She is a former classical ballet dancer and trained with Pacific Northwest Ballet and the University of Arizona School of Dance, and attended summer intensives at the National Ballet of Canada and American Ballet Theater. She graduated summa cum laude from the University of Arizona with a BS in nutrition and a BFA in dance. Nasira continued her studies in the pursuit of a career as a nutrition professional and obtained a master's in public health from UCLA and a doctorate in nutritional sciences from Loma Linda University. She's been an NASM certified personal trainer since 2008 and is a certified yoga instructor. Dr. Burkholder-Cooley, obviously you have so much experience to offer. We're so honored to have you here. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And to have somebody with this, you have deep knowledge of dance and deep knowledge of nutrition and fitness, and those things obviously work together. You have such a diverse background and could have chosen so many different areas to focus your energy and effort in your work. Why did you choose nutrition, and specifically why nutrition for dancers? I know you work with a lot of dancers.
My initial interest in nutrition was based on how I felt it could help me with my ballet career at the time. Yeah. I originally was going to just pursue a dance career, but I decided to double major when I was at the U of Arizona, and nutrition seemed like a logical fit because I knew it was something that could help me learn more about fueling my body and hopefully promoting a longer, healthier career. So it fell into place well. I ended up finding I was very passionate about science in general, and also nutrition science and biochemistry. So as I progressed, I found that, wow, dancers really need guidance in this area. And I understand dancers because I was a dancer, am a dancer. And so now I've found a great niche serving the dance community, and I couldn't be happier about it. It's a really wonderful balance for me.
Yeah, I love that, because we talk about this a lot, how oftentimes up until now, I would say this is changing in recent years, but dancers have really had to make other things outside of dance work for them. And, anytime you can find somebody who speaks that language, our friends at Doctors for Dancers do this really well. Anytime you can connect with somebody who really, really understands the anatomy and just the inner workings of a dancer and what they need, it's very different from a lot of other athletes and people in general. So I love that you're bringing that to the dance community and that you can identify that. So Melissa, let's get started with the first segment, because I know we have a lot to talk about today.
Yes. So I just starting with the basics. We always like to start with the basics because we're all coming from different backgrounds and know different things. And this is a question that is a good one, because some people think that nutrition is one size fits all. That I know this from dieting, however many years, oh, she lost a lot of weight doing that, so I'm going to do this. And he built muscle doing this, so I'm going to do this. They think that whatever works for one person works for everyone. So what makes nutrition different for dancers? Like, why is nutrition different for people who have pursued a dance career or are studying dance?
Nutrition overall is very individualized, and I love that you bring up the fact that nutrition is not one size fits all, and it's so easy for us to buy into fad diets and anecdotal evidence because our friend tried it or this celebrity follows this diet. And I think dancers are very susceptible to trying some of these based on what their role models are doing. But we have to realize that, as individuals, our nutrition needs vary based on body size, age, gender, physical activity level, genetics, the environment. And, you add this additional layer of intense, consistently, rigorous physical activity that dancers are engaging in, and their needs are going to vary dramatically. So generally, I would say dancers have higher energy needs than the general population, and their training, varies day to day, week to week, but it tends to be fairly intense. And for dancers, there really isn't an off season. So it's really just this ongoing high energy demand. And so it's important for them to realize as well that at different ages, when dancers are experiencing periods of rapid growth, their energy needs might be higher. Then you throw in, puberty to the mix. Well, that's another phase where energy demands might be a little bit higher, and we're experiencing body changes, which further complicate the issue. So it's critical that dancers recognize that and that they embrace it and try to fuel themselves appropriately rather than trying to follow the latest fad or, create some restrictive diet because they think that's what they need. They definitely need to try to understand what their needs are and meet their needs
well,
so
and
that they aren't getting injured.
Yeah. Do you think too that dancers are often consumed with cutting calories instead of really the opposite is true, right? That they need actually more because of how rigorous their training is and what they're doing in a given day. It kind of is the opposite of what the natural tendency is for dancer mentality, right?
Absolutely. And studies show that the majority of dancers undereat and in regards to calorie intake. And that is really sabotaging their progress, especially growing dancers that really where their primary goal should be gaining strength, improving their skill set, not trying to cut calories.
Right.
Yeah. And when you look at the mental capacity that the kids have too, not only juggling a full dance schedule, and I'm talking teenagers now, but a lot of times, you're dealing with high schoolers who have, the dreaded AP schedule, they're just up till 2 a.m. doing homework. That's depleting as well, right?
Absolutely. The brain requires a lot of energy, and studying can really use up a lot of calories. So, it's not the same as physical activity, but even dance requires a lot of concentration and memory. So that combined with the demands of school, studying, keeping up with a social agenda, trying to have some fun, maybe pursuing other activities as well, energy demands can be quite high, and something will be compromised if you're not fueling your body correctly. So that might be that you're performing poorly in your dance classes, or you're in a bad mood all the time because you don't feel well, or you can't study well, your memory is poor, and your body can only take so much abuse. And that's what it is when you're restricting its energy.
Yeah.
Right. Now, this is totally off topic, it just came up as you were talking, but is there a specific need that we have as dancers, because we have this need to remain lean and remain agile so that we can keep our flexibility and move quicker and do sharper movements and things like that, but still to actually have the need to build muscle for strength and power and jumps? Like, is there a specific balance that we have to keep there as dancers in our nutrition that helps us maintain both? Because a lot of times when people are training, they're like, oh, I'm building muscle or I'm dropping weight. Like, it's either one or the other. So how do we walk that line? Or is there even a line that we need to walk?
I would say there is a happy medium. There's a fine balance that dancers wish to achieve, and that I think, you know, the dance community is accepting of, because of the things that you mentioned, that, you know, dancers do need to be strong, but we still, you know, there is this aesthetic appeal and a functionality component about having a lean yet strong body. So finding that for each individual, though, again, is unique. And there certainly are ways that it can be accomplished, but it takes time. And oftentimes we don't achieve that perfect balance until we're at the peak of our career in adulthood. And so I think it takes time to achieve that and to figure out how you should be fueling to achieve that. And young dancers often expect themselves, oh, I'm supposed to have my ideal strong, lean body at the age of 13 or 14 or 15. And that's just not realistic. You're going to go through phases of change and experiencing body changes that, you know, you don't have a lot of control over. And to develop that muscle density too, it takes time and years of training. So it's certainly something that can be accomplished if done healthfully. But I'm sad to say, I think a lot of dancers are constantly striving for that ideal, and they end up very frustrated because they're comparing their best self to someone else's best self, and we don't all look the same, and there are different body types. And so, you know, you may be the healthiest version of yourself, but you might not ever be as thin as some other, you know, celebrity dancer. So there's that aspect too, I think, of accepting, you know, working with what you have to try to achieve the best version of yourself in a healthy way. And I help dancers accomplish that. But again, it's very individualized. It's not, you know, oh, here's the recipe for your perfect body and perfect energy level and ideal strength. It will vary person to person and might take some experimenting and, again, maturity.
So yeah, that's a hard pill to swallow, right? Because as kids, that's a tough thing to understand. Yet, you know, that's where they need actually probably the most grace and the most information in this area. And, you know, you add the pressures of, we talk about this all the time, but social media and peer groups and, you know, all the things that we're comparing ourselves constantly to other people. And you add that age into it, and that how hard it is to kind of process all of this information and your emotions and your feelings. It can be difficult. So how hard is it, you know, for people out there that are like, oh, you know, they'll grow up and they'll be fine, and all that kind of track, that track of thinking? How hard is it to change and adjust unhealthy nutritional habit once you become an adult?
I think that the preteen and teenage years are very impressionable.
Yeah.
I actually think in some cases our eating habits develop much earlier than that.
Yeah.
But I will say that the pubertal years tend to be where we start to adopt our adult habits, because there's that newfound sense of independence and sort of trying to figure out who we are, what we want. And so as parents, as dance instructors, we have an important role in trying to promote the development of healthy habits. And unfortunately, I think that the pressures that are experienced by young dancers can often lead them to assume or normalize that, you know, unhealthy eating behaviors are okay. And before you know it, a few years of sort of that mentality can lead to a lifetime of unhealthy eating habits.
Yeah, and we talked about this with this not Dr. Kristen Koskinen as well when she was on. That on the go lifestyle is really, really hard because that's what so many of us practice now, is just every day of the week. We're less often we're sitting down to meals. Obviously this past year is kind of an exception because we're all home more, but generally we're running from place to place to place. These kids are going from place to place to place, often not sitting down until 9-10 o'clock at night, and then they've got piles of homework to do as they become teenagers. So it becomes a lot harder to have quality nutrition and quality meals too. So I know we're going to get into that a little bit later in the episode, but just empowering them, when they're on the go, there are choices. There's still good choices and options that they have. If you're just joining, I'm Brie with Apolla and with my co-host Melissa McDaniel, founder of Turning Point Dance Creations. We're chatting today with Dr. Nasira Burkholder Cooley, and we're talking about how do we empower our students, particularly our student athletes, to make good food choices, healthy food choices. So what age is appropriate to start having children make their own food choices? I know I have 2 little ones at home, and if I left them at their own devices,
Right.
to their own devices, yeah, it'd be cheese balls. And my 4-year-old would have cheese balls, and my son would be eating, chicken and fries, like the kid diet, as we will refer to it later. But he would be doing that for the rest of his life. So, I have to intervene a lot. So what age is appropriate?
It's a challenge. I have a 1-year-old, and I try my best to give her a bit of autonomy in choosing from healthy options. Mm-hmm. So what I will say is that, and this will be a recurring theme in our conversation, is that as the parent, we have to offer acceptable choices, because our children are only going to choose from what we offer. So if you make unhealthy choices available, they taste better. Anybody is going to pick Cheetos over carrot sticks because they taste better.
Right.
But if we don't offer the Cheetos, well, they're not going to know any better. Right. So if you are offering acceptable choices, then I think it's perfectly fine to let your children be part of their food selection at a very young age. And to be honest, it is something that we've been trying at home with our little toddler, where we do offer 1 or 2 fruit options for a snack, or here's, sliced cucumber versus some slivered carrots. Which one would you like? Or putting a few options on their tray or on their plate so that they can decide. Because part of that too is, I think we have to realize there is a balance between us dictating, here's your meal, and also realizing, well, food preferences are real, and it's okay for them to have food preferences, but within reason, because if it's a free for all, then like you're saying, they're going to just stick with the kid diet.
Well, and then you've got, we could go off in a whole tangent here, but my son is very sensitive to texture, and that makes a big difference with him versus my daughter. If you give her those healthy options, she'll happily take those, and that will be her choice to snack on the fruit. And, just she salads and soups. She likes all that. My son, it's a lot more difficult for him because of texture. And so what do you do? This is kind of off the cuff, but what do you do when you have those issues, when introducing those those healthier options? It still is an issue for that child.
It definitely, and picky eaters are common. However, picky eating is not a genetic trait. It is a developed practice. And so I think, again, trying to work with them to find alternatives, not forcing the same oddly textured food on the child all the time. It is true. It sometimes takes 10 to 12 exposures to a new food before a child will accept it. So that takes some persistence. And as a parent, I'm finding just how difficult that really can be, because you think, okay, 3 times. I've already wasted, 3 plates of sweet potatoes. She doesn't like it, but you find that really eventually they do just come to accept it. And so trying that, but then realizing, okay, it's been a dozen times. She still doesn't like sweet potatoes. Okay, we'll move on, maybe later. So I think figuring out, how to understand your child and just do your best to try to accommodate their unique needs.
We want to just keep at it.
It's an ongoing challenge, right? Don't give up, be persistent, because this is an era of your life. This is an opportunity where you have control over what the child is eating.
Yeah.
And as soon as they leave the nest, or really once they enter junior high, even when they're at school, I mean, all it takes is them heading off to school. They're going to start trading food, eating school lunch, hitting up the vending machine. So use this time to really try to develop their taste buds in a way that doesn't make them desensitized to salt, sweet flavors, because that is really what happens over time. If they're exposed early on to these kind of overwhelmingly flavorful foods, that's what they'll always expect. So then, the carrot sticks or apple slices will no longer be appealing.
Right. Especially artificially flavored food. Like those tastes are not natural.
Yeah, they're strong.
The cheese, orange cheese.
That's not real cheese.
You cannot find that in nature. So when you eat real cheese, you're like, this is not quite the same.
Off.
So a little off. So
I love it.
It's hard to fight those artificial stuff.
Yeah. When you're fostering this mentality of choice and you're presenting these healthy options to them, does building these skills, especially earlier on, and this confidence almost in their choices, translate as they get older to other areas of their life?
I say absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think learning to prioritize health is critical. And it's something that, we need as parents need to be examples of. If they see us making it a priority to take the time to prep and consume a healthy meal, or take the time to exercise, they will want to do the same as they grow up.
And that's a lot tougher than it looks, especially in a pandemic world where we're, it's a constant juggle of work-life balance, right?
And the children are around all the time. They're seeing everything you do. Right. You can't slip off to your office and have, your cheeseburger for lunch without your kid watching you, because they're going to see everything you do all day right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So we've done a few shows on nutrition, and one of the big themes that's reoccurring is no food is bad. There's no such thing as a bad food. Like villainizing food is an issue of villainizing certain foods or certain types of food. So when you have a child, and like we referred to it already, that loves the kid diet, the nuggets, the fries, the Cheetos, they say, oh, that's just kid food. Kids love that stuff. When you have them and they choose it, how do you redirect them without villainizing food? Like, how do you not say nuggets are bad or fried food is bad? Like, how do you redirect in a positive way that doesn't villainize certain food groups?
I think the concern is that, well, a few things. One being that there may be a tendency for rebellion if they start to think, okay, this is a no, this is off limits. So as soon as I'm out of mom's sight, I'm going to go for the candy. I'm going to go for the chicken nuggets. Mm-hmm. And again, it's about balance. I think we need to do a good job of trying not to, sort of glorify these food differences or making a big deal about it, because the more that we do that, the more that they're going to be curious and want to try it and feel like, oh, those Krispy Kreme donuts are, they're really popular, but I've never been allowed to have one. So now I'm going to eat a whole box. And I think it's something too. I mean, I see even with adult clients where I hear about some of their histories, and you know, it kind of makes sense why they might feel like they were so deprived. So now they need to try everything. Now, that's not to say, oh, we need to give our kids all the treats now, make sure they try everything, because that's not a good approach either. But I think being reasonable, thinking about, again, being a good example. What is a healthy practice? Well, it's probably okay once a week to have a real dessert in the appropriate portion. Or, you know, maybe once every couple of weeks, your family goes out and you order something fun, or you get pizza. So making those occasions, special occasions, trying to shift the focus away from the actual food in those instances to the experience. Like, we're going out as a family, we're going out for a drive. Oh, we're going to stop for ice cream, without highlighting or emphasizing, oh, this is all about this sugary, sweet ice cream. I'm someone too that loves to bake and cook. So for me, going through the trouble of trying to like recreate, redesign traditional recipes to make them healthier is fun too. So I think, you know, you can still incorporate treats and yummy tasting food that are still nutritious into your kids' diet. And that's something that I know isn't in the cards for everybody if you don't enjoy baking or don't have time to bake, but it's something that, you know, again, if it's just a once a week, maybe a special treat, maybe making something together at home that doesn't have added sugar, using whole grains, using other healthy ingredients, but that still tastes yummy would, you know, become sort of a special treat for your kids.
Yeah, and you don't have to announce that you made this adjustment to the food, right? Because I've had mixed success with this, where I've tried to sub certain things out without my kids knowing about it, and sometimes they just eat it right up, and they're like, what did you do? You know, like I'll get that face, like, I'm not eating this, you know? So, but I mean, it's worth a shot, because when they do like it, it's so empowering to go, okay, this is so much better for them this way.
Absolutely.
You know?
And one of the things that I know I've noticed in studios that I've been in is we tend to, and myself included, reward with things that are unhealthy. It's like, oh, you know, you guys did a great job. Like, I brought cupcakes. Or, oh, here, I brought cookies. And I feel like it kind of builds that sense of, when we do good things, we get these, or I'm going to have a pizza party. You guys won first. If you win first overall every competition, we're going to have a pizza party.
Right. Oh my gosh. Everybody watching has got to be like, yes, I do that. I do. We all do that. Right. That's so common.
We all do that.
You're right. It's terrible. Probably. It's probably the wrong way to do it.
Right. Like, I feel like if we could make a change to try to, maybe our reward system is not based on food at all.
Right.
Like, maybe the reward system isn't food, or even if it is food, maybe it's, hey, we need to choose, everybody gets to vote and choose a option that's a sweet option, an option that's a more healthy option for me to bring as your reward. Like, being able to offer those things versus just saying, hey, it's cupcakes across the board, might be a better way to approach it.
Definitely. Yeah, it is. It's important to veer away from using food as a reward, but it is such an easy option, and kids do tend to get excited about food treats. But I think that if there was sort of a new norm that we could establish, or even if the food reward again was something healthy, or focusing again on the reward being an experience or a trip or a game, that would be preferred, certainly.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So we want to talk about some actual things that dance teachers, because, you know, we're sometimes the parents away from home. We are the adult eyes when they are not around their parents, as well as parents can do that are age appropriate to empower children at every age level. So you kind of already talked about your daughter. I want to take it age group by age group. So developmentally appropriate things that we can do or say as parents to children to help them make the choices that are what we believe are the right choices. So like 2 to 5 year olds, what's a good way to encourage and allow 2 to 5 year olds to make good decisions?
I think at that stage, because they're still, you know, barely developing a voice and learning what they do like and don't like, I think as the parent, dance teachers, it's really about continuing to only offer healthy choices, because they're, again, you still have them sort of in this confined space where they're not out on their own and able to choose from a vending machine or a lunch menu. So offering healthy choices, giving them, 1 or 2 choices per meal or snack. Hey, do you want this or this? And I think that allows them to feel like they're winning. They're getting to make a choice. They have so little control at that age that for them to be able to pick their snack is probably enough of a thrill. Mm-hmm. And so again, just providing that, making available healthy choices. Mm-hmm. At that age.
Well, and I found at that age, it almost was easier to be able to present healthier options, because anything is great in the form of a popsicle. You could put any mixture of fruit, and if you make it a popsicle, they're happy. And you cut little things up and it tastes great. Or those little mesh, things where you can put frozen fruits and vegetables in it. Like, that's easy, like no brainer. Right. I think when we get in these older ages, it's a lot harder, right?
Definitely. Once they start seeing what other people are eating, again, there's that peer influence, and they're exposed to more either on the TV or with their friends. Then you run into, well, my friend gets Lunchables, I want a Lunchable. I still remember as a child being fascinated by Lunchables because I was never given one. Mm-hmm. And you just thought those were the best meals in the world. So I think that once you introduce more exposure, then they're curious. Yeah. So that's, again, why it's so important, from day one to really just try to get them to acquire taste for simplicity and making them feel like they do have choices, that they aren't limited, because they're not. When you think about, in reality, if you count, the options when it comes to healthy food options, there are just as many or more of those than there are, the convenience foods and the
it's just not choices. Ingrained in our vocabulary. Right. So we don't think to present those.
And it's not advertised, in the media that way. So that's not what we're seeing, and that's not what our kids are seeing.
Yeah.
We have a comment from Gina, who's a regular viewer. Says she loves this. Choice is so powerful for kids. And that's true in any aspect. Having choice is so powerful for kids. Choosing between 2 healthy options is a win-win. So thank you, Gina.
Thanks, Gina.
What about 6 to 10-year-olds? We're getting into the upper elementary age there.
And I'm in it, and it is hard, girl. It is hard.
I believe it. I think at that stage, you're still, as a parent, in control of what they're being served at their meals. However, they're going to start practicing, maybe swapping with their friends, or when they're starting to go out on their own once in a while to a friend's house. And so, of course, the idea is you want them to make healthy choices in those situations as well. So keeping it interesting, trying to get kids at that age involved in food prep, so it's something that they can become excited about, even if that's just, letting them shred lettuce for a salad or choose what spices you're going to put on chicken. Letting them feel like they are involved can give them an interest in food. And, you don't know where that might lead them or how that may help them, but I imagine it would be very helpful, and just offer some interest and letting them start to understand the benefits and the thrill of healthy eating.
Right. Yeah. Oh, we're getting into the 10 to 13-year-olds. I call these kids the pod people. Where did my happy, loving little 10-year-old go? So 10 to 13-year-olds, what do you think? That's what, middle school, 5th, 6th, 7th grade.
So now we start introducing issues like body image and peer pressure and puberty. I think at this stage, the most important thing is to just help children try to maintain a healthy perspective and maintain confidence, because they're going to be facing so much adversity and conflict and emotional changes and mood swings. And so trying to at least keep the, food consistent, and hopefully something that remains to be a healthy experience for them. So again, making sure that at the home, there are always healthy choices available, and continued involvement in food prep, giving them even a little more autonomy, maybe allowing them to pack their lunch, which if they're making selections from your home, assuming that those options are healthy, then that shouldn't be an issue. And then if they pack their own lunch, they're probably less likely to feel like, oh, I have a sack lunch, I would rather buy, junk food at the cafeteria.
Well, and this is
That's less
also
likely
the
to
age.
happen.
Yeah, this is also the age too where they get very busy, especially when we're talking about competitive dancers. And so, instead of it's on us because we're driving the car, right? Like we're taking them from place to place. We're in charge of that. So a lot of times when we're like on the go, we forgot to pack something for them to eat in between dance school and dance, or school and whatever activity they're doing. It's easier to drive through somewhere. But really taking the time to pack that food, I would think would be hugely important in terms of their health.
I would say two tips for parents at this age. One is, as much as possible, trying to encourage eating together as a family when you can. And I realize, I know it's very difficult to achieve that when you have children going in different directions, a spouse getting home late. So, but even if it's just a couple of you, even if it's just you and one of your kids sitting down and having a meal, this, preferably the same types of food, so they feel like, okay, we're both eating this healthy meal. That's one thing. Eating together is, a great practice to be in. And then second, planning ahead. And parents, that's on us. Mm-hmm. We have to set the time aside. We have to make it a priority. We all are juggling a lot in these lives, these busy lives we lead, but we make time for what we care about. And if we set aside a couple extra hours on the weekend to do some meal prep or prepackaged snacks, or, get some of the bulk prep out of the way, then it does make the rest of the week a lot easier. And it makes it easy for you to just, grab one of your pre-made homemade trail mix packets, to allow your child to have a healthy snack before their dance class.
Yeah.
Planning ahead. It's huge.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're at the last group, 13 and up. This is when they start we give them some allowance, some money. They can actually go buy. My kids, our studio is next to a Firehouse sub. Oh my gosh, it's like a mass exodus between class to Firehouse to get cookies and chips and cherry limeade and all that stuff. So 13 and up, they're also probably, some of them may be driving and have the opportunity to stop places and do things. So what about 13 and up?
You can still control what's brought into your home. So continue to make those healthy choices for your family. But honestly, at this point, it's almost too late to start, pushing in their face, oh, don't eat that. I think, again, this is where the rebellion can occur. So making a big deal about it is possibly one of the worst things we can do as parents. It's better to just, make available what is healthy. And if they choose to, dabble with some of these other food items, I think discouraging it, don't enable it. If you're finding that their allowance is all getting spent on these super sugary drinks, then that's something that you could possibly, pull the plug on. So keep that in mind. But again, it is normal at that age to explore a little bit more with new food choices. So
what about having conversations? Because I know once we get into talking about this, especially I would say probably at the 10 to 13 group and the 13 and up group, it can be a really, really, really shaky ground to talk about, when we're criticizing what they're eating and making them conscious in a way that they start developing body image issues that maybe that wasn't the intention with our conversation, but that's the result. So how do we, yes, we can't make a big deal about it. And yes, we can't, really make the choice for them, but should we still be having these conversations about why we need to put healthy foods in our body with those kids at that age?
Absolutely. We should. It's a sensitive area, but we if we aren't having the conversations with our kids, nobody will, because unfortunately, nutrition just is not emphasized enough in the school system. So children need to become educated, and that is empowering. Knowledge is power. And so I think if we frame it in a way that isn't about, oh, if you eat this way, you're going to become overweight. Mm-hmm. If we frame it in a way that, you realize if you eat this way, there are certain diseases down the road that you might end up, running into, like diabetes or heart disease. And I think, the younger, the better that we bring up these topics, even if it's just in passing, when maybe there's a family member that has cardiovascular disease, you can tie it into the conversation that way. And that way it's something that they're familiar with, that they understand that, okay, diet and health outcomes are related. Mm-hmm. And I can prevent these diseases that could be very detrimental to my future. And it's hard for a teenager to accept that. They're not thinking about diabetes. They're thinking about the next, Instagram picture they're going to take. So they care more about how they look, but we also don't want that to be our emphasis, because that's already on their mind.
Yeah, I love that, because a lot of times, I was going to say the same thing. It's really hard for them to worry about something that hasn't happened yet. They don't understand long-term consequences at that age. They don't even think about that. And so having something they can identify or relate to, it works much better. And especially going to the studio directors, the educators that are watching, this goes for you as well, talking about how not necessarily the calories or what their body looks like, but their performance. Right. So, making sure that they understand how this will impact their performance, finding creative ways like getting with a nutritionist in your community and having that nutritionist come in and talk to the dancers, about fueling their bodies properly, and just what it can do to their performance, because they do care about that. They do care about that.
Right? That is definitely something that we have in our favor, is that we can encourage them to have healthy habits for preventing injury and not feeling sluggish. I think pointing out your energy levels are affected by the way that you eat and the health of your bones, your joints. So reducing injury risk, promoting healing. I mean, these are all certain factors that athletes and dancers, I think, will resonate with them.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to get to the homework in just a second, but before we do, last question is, how should parents and studio owners and educators handle the moments away, the moments that these kids are not in our supervision, they're not under our roof, they're not within our eyesight? We're talking about sleepovers, we're talking about competitions, we're talking about conventions. A lot of these at school, a lot of these places don't have the healthiest food options. So, what are some things that we can do to kind of mitigate the damage that can be done when they're not in our eyesight?
Like any choices that our kids will be making when they're not with us, I think their memories of conversations that they've had with you are going to be powerful for them. Yeah. And just help them remember, what they know, how those choices will impact them. So I think, as we've been discussing, first of all, giving them autonomy at a young age to know how to make the right choices is important. Educating them as they grow up, learning to give them healthy choices, teaching them about food, how to prep food, how to buy food, even, involve your kids in those processes, so that when they are taking that on their own, that they can do it in a way that is healthful.
Yeah, thank you. So let's get to the homework, Melissa.
Hey, Bree,
let's
get real quick. We have a question in Facebook that I want to get to before we get to
let's do it.
So this is from Kat. How do you find a good nutritionist in your local community who actually knows dance?
That's a great
question. Know of any resources or anything you should look for? Like, what if you're looking for a nutritionist? What are some questions you should ask to see if they have any specific experience with dancers or know how to work with dancers specifically?
Great question. I think first and foremost, make sure that you find a registered dietitian nutritionist, because that is the standard for people that really have a good education and experience in nutrition. So make sure you look for someone with that credential, that's registered dietitian. And then I think you need to just learn about the registered dietitian as an individual. Are they a former dancer? Do they actually work with dancers? Because even sports dietitians don't necessarily understand the psyche of dancers. And I certainly know a lot of my clients come to me after having seen several other dietitians and just saying that they felt misunderstood. And I find that some of the advice and recommendations that had been given to them really wasn't appropriate for a dancer. So I think it's important that you do find out if the person you're interested in working with has a background in dance.
Yeah.
Because
well, and oftentimes these people oftentimes they're more accessible because everything's online right now. People do consults, they'll do Zoom meetings with your dancers. And I want to point out one more time, Doctors for Dancers is an excellent resource for this. They connect you with dance medicine specialists and nutritionists in your area. So it's doctorsfordancers.com. That is what they do. So it's worth checking out to see if they have anybody in your area that you can talk to.
And my services are all remote as well. So I can work with anybody throughout the world via virtual consultation.
Give us your info so people can contact you. We're going to put it in the chat too.
Perfect. So I do have a blog. It's healthonpoint.com, and we have some resources updated monthly with recipes and nutrition advice, injury prevention advice. And then you can contact me via email at nasirasnutrition@gmail.com to set up an individual consultation. I also do group education for dancers, both in person and virtually, depending on your area.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'm putting those all in right now.
Okay, so awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to the homework while you're putting those in. So we like to give our viewers homework, something that we want them to focus on between now and next week when we come back with another topic. So what is one action, one thing that you want our listeners to take between now and next week to progress in this area?
I think committing yourselves, whatever stage you're at, to spending a little extra time in the week to purchase or prepare some healthy snacks for your busy week. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just an extra 30 minutes to an hour, because I think anybody could benefit from that. Parent, dancer, young dancer. If you're the parent, maybe including your child in that experience. Because again, if you start to build that into your week, you find that you are prepared, and then you're not in a scramble and you're not sort of prone to making poor nutrition choices when you're running out of time or when that's all that's available because you didn't plan ahead. So commit an extra hour this week to setting yourself up for a healthy week of nutrition.
And I hear when you prepare those healthy snacks, children at any age, give them a choice between one healthy and another healthy to help them start to build that confidence to choose. So that's awesome. I think we can all do that. I mean, I think I can do that for myself.
Absolutely.
As well.
I have one other challenge for everyone, and that is to avoid getting your nutrition and health advice from unreliable sources like friends and Instagram. Stop doing that.
A dietitian? What? I can't believe that. That's hard to believe.
Stop doing that. It is self-sabotage, and it's confusing, and it's frustrating, and it will only lead to poor choices and adverse health outcomes in many cases.
Yeah, thank you.
I will stop getting my health advice from Instagram today. So there are lots of other resources. Dr. Burkholder Cooley has given us a resource that we're going to pop into the chat a little bit later, but I do want to talk about the STEPS initiative, which is sponsored by Apolla Performance. A number of wonderful professionals have contributed to that in areas of anti-racism and equity, integrative dance, nutrition, dance science and medicine, all of that wonderful stuff. You can take that totally for free at apollaperformance.com. Also, YPAD has amazing certifications in a number of different areas. Those courses are available, and Bree's going to pop that link in. And we also have a code, Apolla25, that you can use to get 25% off YPAD courses. Bree also has already popped in a resource from Nasira. Can you tell us about this? It's the How to Choose Healthy nutrition recommendations for dancers. Tell us a little bit about that resource.
There's a handout that I've shared that has some general tips on nutrition for dancers, some ideas for meal prep, lists of healthy snacks, with some information also about good resources for recipes and nutrition, and then some information about my background and my contact information. So that's a handout focusing on healthy snacking for dancers.
That is
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes,
my pleasure.
That's very healthy. And then we've already helpful. And we've already talked about how you can reach Dr. Burkholder Cooley at health_on_point and at nasirasnutrition@gmail.com. So reach out to her. She's been absolutely amazing today at giving us some wonderful, wonderful advice. So
yeah, we hope this has been helpful for you guys. You know, we're going to continue to have these really important conversations on topics that are impacting our dancers and our children. So we hope you're taking stuff away from this. If there's anything that you want to see or hear about, please message us, info@apollaperformance.com, and we will make sure we get that scheduled. We're always working on scheduling the future episodes, and we're doing that now for May and June. So if there's anything you want to hear about, again, message us. You know, this is all, the more information we have, the more informed we are, the better steps we can take forward together to create happier, healthier dance spaces for everybody. That's why we do this show every Friday. The recording of this full episode and all of our episodes will be available on Facebook Live at Apolla Performance and Apolla's IGTV. Again, Apolla Performance, as well as Turning Point Dance Creations at _TPDC_on_IG_. And if you register to join us on Zoom, you're going to get a recording of each and every week's episode. We ask you to please share so we can get the word out and affect real change in our dance community and beyond. Thank you again to Dr. Nasira Burkholder Cooley for joining us today and for your knowledge and insight. This has been another fantastic informational episode. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been great. We're going to have you back, I'm sure. As always, thank you to my friend Melissa McDaniel for being on this journey with me. Love doing this with you every Friday. Join Melissa and me next week, Friday, March 19th, as we chat with Cassandra Springs and explore, does activism have a place in the dance studio environment? We have a lot of dancers that are looking to us to model behavior. We have a lot of tough issues that they are taking notice of and that are affecting our dancers and ourselves and our staff. So this is an important one that I don't think people give enough thought to. So we're going to talk about it next week with Sandra. We hope you join us. Until then, we hope you continue your journey beyond the steps and have a great weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you again.
Thanks.